fire. You can't catch us now. Running, yeah. Out here on run.
All right, and the hits keep on coming.
Yeah.
We've turned into a weather show here, apparently.
People love the fact that you're talking about weather. We got so many comments. I couldn't even put them all in the show. I mean, I couldn't begin to put them all in the show, but
Right.
Great feedback. Definitely. I mean, especially when it's, emergency weather.
Right.
People are obviously very alert on that, especially here in New Mexico, which we have some breaking news on that as well with the flooding in RUIDOSO, which we will also get to. But just holy cow. I mean, it does feel like just this. I mean, we're at the beginning of the monsoons too.
Yeah.
Have they even started?
Yeah. We have. Some of the classic monsoon signatures have been present over the past few weeks. Now, we had a very wet spring, too, which was good. And that was not the monsoon flow pattern, but this now is. And we'll get into all of that. And we're going to have a more varied show today. We will get into a little bit of some of the reaction to the show we did. And again, if you want to go back and listen to the show we did just a couple of days ago, we're coming back at you pretty quickly here to get back on schedule. But we talked about the Texas floods, why these floods were so devastating in those areas of Texas. And it's an instructive thing for New Mexico because we do get the bad floods. We're about to talk about one here in a second in RUIDOSO as well. And then we're going to get into someone who I think is one of the more damaging people in the country because he has the rare ability as a charlatan to act like he is an expert on something he has no knowledge in. And there are plenty of people that are blowhards all across the country that get on podcasts and get on news programs. There are plenty of those. But most of them have the personal self-respect to not cloak themselves in expertise, not give themselves false expertise. And the one person who does that more than anybody else in the country was on CNN, and I find him to be infuriating. And so we will briefly talk about him and expose him for the phony that he is. And I use very strong language with him because I think what he does is incredibly damaging. And I think he's a political hack who poses as a scientist. And it is infuriating. And so then we're going to talk about some of the other things that are happening here. One of them, weather modification. Does that have an issue?
Yeah,
Is that an issue?
Well, I mean, it's been talked about all over Twitter, even our X last night. I responded by saying, hey, listen, we're going to talk about cloud seeding. Mark wants to clear the air on at least for what, your understanding of it is and what you know it to be. And let's talk about that because I think there is a lot of conspiracy out there about cloud seeding. So we are going to hit that as well.
Yes, we will absolutely hit that. And then we're going to get into some more national political issues as well. One of them that we've been wanting to talk about for a long time, we've mentioned it before. How in the world do the Chinese own farmland in the United States?
Yeah, we talked about that a year ago.
It's crazy.
It's crazy the amount that they actually own.
Yes.
So a little bit of a clawback potentially trying to happen by Trump.
Absolutely, which is about time, and I think it's a smart thing to do. Then the immigration battles continue to be a huge, huge issue. We'll talk about what the numbers look like. CNN has some new numbers out on that. And we're also going to get into the interesting dance that the president is going to have to undertake with his base, with his MAGA base. And this is normal for any president, where you get in there, you start doing things, your base loves it. And then as you go to, stage 2 and stage 3 of your presidency, when you continue to enact things, and sometimes reality runs up against campaign promises. And there are some people who are just diehards who want one thing and one thing only, whatever that is. They're purists. And those political purists oftentimes get very angry. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the president handles that. Then we're going to get into a little bit of the Medicaid stuff and some more polling. And then finally, we're going to get into, I think, what's happened. One interesting thing with the president. Mm-hmm. I think the president may be watching somebody who does impressions of him. And in a way, the president is doing his own voice as it's being impersonated by someone else, if that makes sense. So it's almost like Donald Trump does Shane Gillis, who's doing Donald Trump. So it's pretty funny, and we'll get into that as well.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of these comments. Thanks again, you guys, for writing in. I feel like we have such a great community out there, and I know that you don't always agree with everything that we say. You guys, I feel like for the most part, are really polite to each other online, and I appreciate that even when you disagree on topics. So please keep that up. We love that kind of community here, and we appreciate that. So keep those emails and comments coming on YouTube, please, for sure. Okay, this one came in as email, so I can't actually pop this one up, but it came from Gretchen Badeau. Gretchen, it says, Dear Mark and Christy, I don't normally post on social media, but wanted to write a thank you for the special note out about it. show you did on the Texas flooding. It gave my husband and I a better perspective of the flooding that happened around us. I especially liked learning about the
Mesoscale convective vortex.
Thank you.
MCV.
Okay, low pressure system and moisture from decaying tropical storm over our home in the hills. We got 11 inches of rain. We live in the hills above and southwest of Kerrville and south of Hunt. Our dry creek beds ran, but our home, animals, and property are safe. We like to listen to your podcast to keep up with New Mexico events. You are both informative and fun. Keep up the good work. Thank you again. Gretchen, thanks so much. She actually had lived here. They've retired now there. She voted for you governor.
Nice.
I mean, her kids performed in debate and stuff. So she wrote a lot more than that. But Gretchen, thank you for taking the time to write us.
Yeah, that's a really cool letter. Thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah, thank you so much about that. Okay, Susan wrote in. Susan says, thank you for your compassion and honesty while discussing the horrific event. Kit Kelly said, such an informative and sad show today. Heart-wrenching story about the dad that could not save his daughters and parents. Like you, I am absolutely disgusted by this. Some insane people trying to politicize this. Inexcusable and beyond redemption. And here we have Cheppa Kelly?
Sure.
Okay.
Cheppa Kelly 7807.
Cheppa Kelly. Thank you for the exceptional presentation, which removed the political and replaced it with human perspective on the devastating Texas flood. There are no R's or D's when our nation is suffering. We have never missed an episode because we can see your passion and love for New Mexico and our country. Thank you for being so committed to staying true to yourselves, Ronchetti. May God bless you and your family, which was very nice.
Yes.
And then Pete, I put this one in because he added a lot more detail too. Pete said, I'm a trained weather spotter for 14 years and hold a Bachelor of Science degree in geography. I would add the following. Warning sirens are mostly designed for those who may be outside versus inside a structure where they are less audible for what it's worth. They are prone to storm-related power outages, but many are equipped with backup power generation. Another thing is regarding the NOAA weather radios. I'm puzzled that more people don't have these because they save lives. Relatively inexpensive. They're less than $30 or $40. Their alert buzzers can wake up the deepest of sleepers from another room and work on battery power. As we both know, these devices give immediate real-time watches and warnings directly from the National Weather Service as they are issued. These radios are the best way to be alerted. And he went on to say that he also believed that the National Weather Service did their job that day and did it to the best of their ability. So thanks again, you guys, for writing in. Please, if you want to drop us an email, you can send it to info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Sign up for our emails also on our website, which is nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. And also just continue to make those comments on our YouTube channel. It helps us greatly. So thank you so much.
So I want to add a quick thing to what Pete said about the weather radios. I think what we're about to talk about in Ruidoso, if you live in Ruidoso or you know someone who lives in Ruidoso, I think this is a great idea because we grew up with them in our house. We had NOAA weather radios all the time. And so he's right. There is a piercing warning when that happens. And they don't constantly ring. You can set it up in a way that makes sure that you get the most serious warnings. So even in the middle of the night, we would get some very strong storms occasionally and the thing would go off and it would alert everybody. And if you live in Ruidoso, I think I would absolutely highly recommend you get one, because if what happens yesterday or what happened yesterday on Tuesday happens again, there's no question it's going to flood the same way. And I'll explain why it happened here in just a second. But what you saw and the scenes that we saw in Ruidoso here over the past day or so are exactly like the scenes we saw in Texas. Although it didn't take nearly as much rain in Ruidoso to do what it did as it did in Texas, to give you an idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Texas, as you mentioned, the family in Kerrville, they got 10 plus inches of rain. Ruidoso got 3. Not even Ruidoso got 3. The mountains outside of Ruidoso got 3. Okay, that's what it took. Okay,
wow,
so
because it just really depends on the topography.
The topography and the burn scar. Okay, so let's get to it. First of all,
real question though. I have a question about that NOAA weather radio. Yeah. Okay, so I covered the F4 tornado when I was a news anchor in Shreveport. Remember that? And it scared me so bad because it happened at night. Yep. And so I lived in a 30-bedroom apartment. My mom sent me a weather radio, and I just remember it being a weather radio. And it would go off all the time. And it scared me so bad. I finally had to get rid of it because I kind of had like PTSD from that tornado because it was really scary and it killed a lot of people. And so I kind of was freaked out about it because I wasn't used to living in Tornado Alley. Right. Was that a NOAA radio I had?
Yeah, it probably was. I'm not 100% sure, but it probably was. And what you can do with them is you can set them for certain thresholds, just like you set your phone.
Oh, I probably did not do that.
Yeah, and that's, believe me, they've come a long way. Like when I was a kid,
that was 20
you
years
got
ago.
them and you set them down and it's going off when it's going off. And it's just the way it is. Well, that's not the case now. So you can set these things up so when there is a flood warning, And what I probably would use as the threshold is a flood warning or flood emergency. The minute that happens, everything should be going off. In other words, I think too, on our phones, we need to seriously look at, if you live in a place like Kerrville, I think what they should do is work a deal with your carrier and work a deal with the iPhone and whatever else you have to work the Androids to be able to say, we're going to send you a message that no matter when it is, no matter what your phone is set on, you can opt into a warning system that would blow up your phone no matter what.
Well, it's kind of like an Amber Alert.
Yeah, but even more so.
Yeah.
Even more
Okay.
so. It's got to bypass everything on your phone to be able to crank it up, with the exception of being turned off, right?
Right.
But without that, it doesn't matter. If your ringer's turned off, it should bypass all of it. And so you have a weather emergency, you've opted into this, and it will go off. So if you are taking a vacation on the Guadalupe River, I would absolutely have that set. Now, I don't think that's fully set the way we need it to be, but I think it can get done.
Okay.
So,
All right, interesting. All right, let's talk about Ruidoso.
Yeah, so this was the video that came out on Tuesday. Just devastating. As you can see, a cabin just absolutely floating down the Rio Ruidoso.
Yeah, the whole house.
I mean, just hard. I mean, this town has been through so much, from the fire last year to the regular floods last year to some this year to this.
And we've had 3 deaths reported so far.
Yeah, 2 kids.
2 small children.
Just awful to
were there
watch
on
this
holiday,
play out.
so just-
They went from a normal flow to 20 feet above flood stage, basically, within an hour. I mean, it was just devastating to look at how this plays out. And I think this is just the way it is down there right now because of the way things set up. And I want to show you
And when
first.
you say that, just the way it's set up because of the burn scars is what you're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
and the way the water flows out of the Sacramento Mountains into town. Okay, so the Sacramento Mountains basically sit just west of Ruidoso. Okay, and that's important. Now, by the way, look at this. This is a time lapse shot. Look how quickly this happened.
Holy
Boom.
cow.
I mean, it's just scary. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to show you first, and we're going to put up a radar. And Ava, let's run this loop a few times. But what I want to show you is what happened here. And what you have is, see those storms coming down from the north? Okay, and they're blowing up as they're coming down. You got some severe thunderstorms there. Rain rates are very, very high out of those storms. Okay, now in those particular storms, okay, as they slide their way down, they're going down over the mountains here. So where you're seeing those reds and oranges, if we can even pause it, say right there. Okay, now notice where all the heaviest rain is. You look at the heaviest rain, and you say, it's not over Ruidoso. Ruidoso is on the right side of your screen there. Do you see it? It's in the lighter rain.
Right.
You're going, what's the problem here? Right where those storms are going, that is where the headwaters of the Rio Ruidoso is. That's over the high terrain of the Sacramento Mountains. And that's also over the area that has been just charred. Okay. And so what you have in that area is the combination of the heavy rain, the canyon, and burn scars, so that everything funnels down from west to east off the mountains directly into town. And so this is one of the most dangerous setups you can have in Ruidoso, because the canyon, which the Rio Ruidoso rolls down, it just gets filled with this water and mud and sludge that comes flying into town. So where those storms hit was devastating.
Well, and just, we're going to continue to reach out. I know a lot of people right now, they're still looking for loved ones, are looking for their, they're just trying to kind of recover today a little bit. But as we get more information about how we can help the folks of Ruidoso, we'll be happy to share that information out. If you're listening to us from Ruidoso and you know that directly, please drop us an email or write a comment on our YouTube channel, and we will help spread the word about that in our next show, because it is going to be vitally important. Again, just like when the fires came, is how do we help these folks out?
Right. I mean, the scariest part of this, though, is when you look at that radar and you see those are garden variety storms.
Right, there's
those
3
are not
inches, you
crazy.
said.
Yeah, 3 inches of rain in that area. Okay, which for New Mexico, many of you know, in mountain communities, we get 3 inches of rain with a thunderstorm regularly. It's not all the time, and it definitely can lead to minor flooding. But because the situation in Ruidoso is so different, what's so scary about it is I talked to one of my friends there today, and she operates a car wash there. And she's like, what's going to happen today? I didn't have an answer for her, because these are pop-up thunderstorms that work their way down. Yesterday was not a super wet day across New Mexico. Most areas didn't see a ton of rain. But that's what makes this so scary for so many people there who look at it and go, I don't know what's going to happen. What if this happens again today? And if you're in Ruidoso, you've literally seen scenes like that 3-4 times with flooding in the past year, not to mention the devastating fires. It's just, and I wish I had a better answer about what to do other than, be prepared for these things and know where the storms are in relation to the Sacramento Mountains. It matters to you. If those storms are bubbling up to your west, that matters. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every time like this, but it does mean the chances go up the more action you get over Sierra Blanca and along the headwaters of the Rio.
Yeah, and on X yesterday, there was also some reporting of some of those waters, like lots of rains, right where we had just drove through the day before, where Mora and Guadalupita,
yes.
they were getting some rising waters there with the rain. They're also having, Mora has burn scars from the Hermit Cave fire there too.
Hermit Cave, no question. Mora's a great example of another one of those. It's even worse, though, in Ruidoso because the canyon setup is worse.
Got it.
Okay, so you get a little more of a wide flow out of Mora, but still, even Mora, if you put 3 inches of 3 inches of rain on those burn scars in Mora, you will wash out between Mora and Guadalupita. That's right. That'll be a massive issue.
Yeah.
It'll be a huge issue. So again, this is something we live with here. This is something that is not new to the state of New Mexico. And again, this is not driven by climate change, these storms. They're not. And so that's why I want to get to this latest poser.
Okay.
Because the person...
He's not even latest.
No, he's been a poser for a long
time.
He has. And he has absolutely no training in meteorology. He has no training in climatology. But he calls himself the science guy. And it's Bill Nye. What's wrong, Ava? Go ahead, yeah.
I just wanted to say that this kind of bums me out as someone who ingested copious amounts of Bill Nye-related content in my youth.
Right.
He was the go-to for science-related news growing up. Like, it was a huge deal if you got to go in after recess and watch Bill Nye. It was like the best thing ever.
Well, it's almost like he's a character. Like, he's almost like an actor.
Well,
He's kind of like our Mr. Rogers a little bit.
Right. No, I understand, Ava. And I think that's right. And I think this is why I think what he says here and who he is so dangerous. Because he's so uninformed. He has no idea what he's talking about. And when CNN platforms him and Dana Bash puts him on her show and says, gee, tell us what we can do. What can we do to avoid having this happen again? Right? He's talking about the Texas floods. Okay. Now, we gave you in the last episode 5 things that happened that led to the massive loss of life. We laid all of those out, so you can go check those out. But it was a rare weather situation and a combination of a weather situation combined with topography, combined with the time of day, meaning at night, combined with a holiday weekend. There's a bunch of different stuff, right? And there's real meteorological reasons that this happened, okay? Bill Nye doesn't know about any of those. We had one of our viewers mention that talking about an MCV. Bill Nye wouldn't know what an MCV was if his life depended on it. He wouldn't know that as an MCV backs into a decaying tropical system, it leads to a very dangerous situation. And on top of that, when you have canyons and hills in the hill country that enhance all of this, that's the cause. Okay? He didn't know any of that. What he knows is politics. What he knows is people who support him tell him to say things that are ludicrous. And young kids like Ava, who grew up on him, listen to him, and they hear him say what we're about to play, think, oh, okay, if mom didn't drive an SUV, we wouldn't have these floods. What an ignorant clown. So let's just listen to what this poser has to say.
You can't just float your way out of it.
Yeah.
It knocks everything over. Everybody knows you pick up a bucket of water, you know how heavy it is. And you get a lot of water going that fast. So what are we going to do about it is the ancient question, and it would be to stop burning fossil fuels. When you're in a hole, stop digging, and so on. But the fossil fuel industry has been very successful in getting organizations like the U.S. Congress to think that it's really not happening.
Well, and the first 6 months of the Trump administration, we've seen an end to some of the federal efforts on not just fossil fuel, but other efforts that had been in place government-wide to promote alternative energy.
Yes.
No, okay. I mean, who's dumber between these two? So it's infuriating to watch because the reality of the situation is I can promise you this with every fiber of my being. You could stop burning every single fossil fuel tomorrow, and by the way, many more people will die and suffer because of it, but he doesn't know that because he's bought and paid for. So that doesn't matter. But setting that aside, you could stop burning every fossil fuel tomorrow and you would still get thunderstorms that would lead to flooding, that would lead to massive flooding along the Guadalupe River in Texas from the now until the end of the planet Earth. But his disingenuous garbage and his politically motivated crap is believed by too many people. He should be drummed out of public life in humiliation because he's a charlatan, a fool, and doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, it's just that simple. And anybody, CNN or Dana Bash, who again does everything she can to push a political narrative, should be ashamed of themselves. And so please don't listen to this guy because he has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, this was caused by very specific meteorological reasons that have nothing to do with mom driving an Armada or mom driving a Tahoe. It's just ridiculous. And by the way, he is so uninformed that he believes you could just stop burning fossil fuels. Like literally, the state of New Mexico would cease to exist. I mean, and not only that, every middle-income and low-income family, you couldn't go where you need to go. You couldn't drive a car. You couldn't have a hospital that runs on power. We rely on natural gas for most of how we generate power for our hospitals, clown. Like, what do you think this is? He's just such a fool. And I'm sorry to be so nasty toward him, personally nasty, but he's disgusting to me. He's disgusting.
Well, because it's hard because when he's not a truth teller and then he gets all the limelight to talk about this stuff and you manipulate kids, you manipulate their parents, you manipulate the system. And it's infuriating. Okay. So one thing that's kind of buzzing about, and it's been buzzing about for quite a while on X. Okay. So first of all, explain briefly cloud seeding, because cloud seeding has been going on since the 40s, by the way. If people don't know that, it was introduced in the 1940s, I think 46, something like that. Right. And so can briefly explain what cloud seeding is for those people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, so cloud seeding is the introduction of what they call condensation nuclei into the atmosphere. Okay, what's condensation nuclei? It's a little particle, often salt, or in this particular case, they spread silver iodide in the atmosphere. What it does is it provides this little speck, right? And then moisture basically adheres to that little speck, forms a raindrop, and it falls out. So effectively, what it can do is increase some rainfall across areas that need it. We've tried it here in New Mexico to some degree with some limited success. There's been Colorado's tried it. Utah's tried it. They've tried it during the winter to get more snow. And so it is something that I think on balance is something pretty good, which I think we need to try to do to get some more moisture. So, again, but you have fools like Marjorie Taylor Greene who come out and say, oh my gosh, this is geoengineering. You can't do this or whatever. Oh, give me a break. She has no idea what she's
And then it led
talking
to the
about.
Texas flooding.
Right. Now, by the way, yeah. So there, I guess NBC talked about this.
Yeah, NBC.
Gotti Schwartz.
Yeah, he gets into this. So I want to play this for you, and then we'll get your response a little bit more about this.
Posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iodide into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down?
Already, but
Yeah, so he does a decent job explaining it, by the way. And Gotti Schwartz wasn't saying, by the way, he's a guy who used to work here in New Mexico. He's not saying, this is happening. And it didn't. That had absolutely nothing to do with what happened here. And anyone who tells you cloud seeding leads to massive flooding it's not true. It's just not true. And I think that we are looking at doing more and more cloud seeding. Had we won the governor's race, we would have invested effort and time into cloud seeding. Because it's important, and I think we need to wring out as much moisture as we possibly can. But it does not, and that's what the CEO of that cloud seeding company didn't do a great job of explaining that, because the way he kind of explained it was, well, yes, if you get it in mass, it's a huge amounts of water. It's not, though. In any one area, it again could give you an extra little bit of rain each time or a little bit of snow each time, but in aggregate, meaning once you add it all together, it could add some additional moisture. When anybody tells you that cloud seeding is basically massive weather modification, it's not true, and it's an overreaction. So be careful on some of these things.
Right. Definitely conspiracy. It's definitely, it's a pretty big conspiracy on X, for example.
Right. Yeah. Just realize that it's been used or on the edges to try to increase a little bit of moisture. It's something that has been tried here in New Mexico, again, with limited success. Colorado has tried it. So again, just don't buy all this.
Right. And it's been around for 80 years, by the way. It's been around for 80 years. Right. So it's not like some new thing where the government's trying to.
Yeah, the government's trying to flood us all out of what. No, they're not.
That's not what's happening.
They're not.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit. What we've talked about is this the Chinese buying up farmland. How dangerous can that be? Especially buying things close to other military bases, for example, buying up businesses in the country. What does that look like? Why should we be concerned? It's been going on for several years. I mean, decades at this point. People have been covering it. Yeah. So let's hear a little bit about this, because the Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins came out yesterday making quite an announcement about this is going to happen no more. No more.
We announced the USDA's National Farm Security Action Plan. This plan includes 7 key action items, and there's a lot of people here that I want you to hear from, so I'm not going to go one by one, but just very quickly. It's on our website. The press has gotten a preview of it, and we can ask some questions once we finish the main program. But very quickly, and perhaps the most important, the first of the 7 is securing and protecting American farmland ownership. Actively engaging at every level of government to take swift legislative and executive action to ban the purchase of American farmland by Chinese nationals and other foreign adversaries. Standing on the shoulders of great governors, 3 of whom are standing behind me, who have already been leading the way on this issue. And at the federal government level, working to do everything within our ability, including presidential authorities, to claw back what has already been purchased by China and other foreign adversaries. Additionally, working with the Treasury of the Secretary of the Treasury, along with our Defense Department, on memorandums to ensure that moving forward, there is a much more intentional look at who is buying what in this country and from where they are in the world.
And remember, we talked about, like, when we were talking about the tariffs with China, things of that nature, and you were talking about this specifically. You're like, I can't go to China and buy up buildings or land or a house. I can't buy anything. As an American, we don't get the right to go to China and buy up any of their property or land, right? So why has it been able to happen here for so long?
So this is what will be interesting. The Trump administration will be able to do some executive orders to some degree, but they're going to need Congress's help to roll. When they talk about clawing back, they're going to need Congress to pass a law. They're going to need that. And it's going to be interesting to see. This is another one of those 90-10 issues, 80-20 issues, where we're going to have a very interesting discussion back and forth. And the Democrats can't look at Trump and be like, no, we're going to continue to let the Chinese own as much land in the United States as they want. I don't know what they're going to do, but I hope they just say, you know what? Let's come together on this, make a deal. Let's pass the law and move on. Like, if you're on the Democratic Party, and I'm giving them advice, they don't need my advice.
They actually do. So we'll go ahead and
I don't think they do. Clearly, they don't. But the best thing for them to do would be like, all right, let's figure it out. Let's get it passed and get this thing by. Because if you come out on the other side of Trump on this and saying, oh no, we're gonna stand in and speak for the Chinese here, it's crazy. I mean, it is absolutely nuts. And so Brooke Rollins went on Laura Ingraham on Tuesday night, and she explained this a little bit further and went into some more detail about this. And what they're going to show here on this map when she's talking is how many states the Chinese own significant farmland in, and it's a lot.
all of government approach.
What does that mean?
Well, what that means is that if we're going to really ban China from buying our farmland or any foreign adversaries, it's got to be the states have to lean in, the federal government has to step up. We've got to have executive orders out of the White House.
A law?
There's a law needs to be passed. A lot of bills have been filed, but it hasn't moved. I don't know that America really understands, or at least our elected officials.
How was this allowed,
recently.
though? China owns Smithfield Foods, one of the largest food processing plants in the United States, land near military bases. I've covered this for 20 years.
Well, it's now all changes today. I mean, today we, for the first time, are saying no more. Banning the sale of China farmland, working with the states, getting the bills passed through Congress, having an executive order, but also, Laura, looking at how to potentially claw some of that back.
So it absolutely has to happen. Right. And she mentions it. You have to have Congress pass some of this stuff. But you think about our food supply and how much of it they have a hand in. The fact that we let this happen as a country and our leaders fell asleep and decided that, let's just let the Chinese take what they want. I mean, are you kidding?
I'm just wondering if there wasn't enough coordination between the states or the governments of each state to know that this was actually happening at the level and the amount that it's been happening.
Yeah, I don't know either, but there's no reason that the federal government shouldn't have known about this and stepped in, and Congress shouldn't have stepped in a long time ago to be able to say this cannot happen. So the clawback is an interesting point. You know, she's trying to lay the groundwork for a law which says basically to the Chinese government or to anybody from China who owns some of these interests, you're going to have to sell them. And you're going to sell them to an American. Like, sorry, you're going to have to play by the rules that we have to play by in your country. We don't get to show up and own massive amounts of Chinese farmland next to some of their biggest military bases. We don't get to do that. We don't get to control the Chinese food supply.
We don't get to buy a factory over there. So
no,
keep that
and
in mind.
they get full visibility into what you're doing in China.
Right.
Like they get very, very clear visibility.
Your business,
it's how they get a lot of their information. It's how they get a lot of their intellectual property, by the way.
Right.
They rip it off because when we're producing in China, they get a good look at it. Right. And so this has to change. I can't imagine being on the other side of this. I don't think there is another side of this.
But listen, we've thought that for a long time on several of these issues, and yet
this
still
one
people
is
are
I agree.
They're still arguing it. You know, I'm not going to put that much faith on the other side because this is a Trump initiative. And I guarantee you it's going to become a no, Trump said it. So it's let's get our speaking points out.
Let's get the Chinese back in here.
Okay, it's going to be like, we're America. We're for everybody owning part of our great country. It's,
that's what you think. That's what you think. Okay.
This land is my land. This land is your land. I mean,
this land is the Chinese land?
I guess so. I mean, I'm telling you, I think that's what's getting ready to happen.
So you think the broad message
this land
from
is
the
your
left
land.
will be that anybody from China should be able to own what they want.
Anybody from anywhere should be able to own what they want.
It's the American dream.
It's the American dream. It's a capitalist society. You asked for the capitalist society. You fought for a capitalist society. So here you go. Why would we want to tell anybody that they can't do it? That's the argument. That's what they're going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to put my money on it right now. So if that doesn't happen, I will be floored. Then that tells me that the Trump administration, the secretary has really done a good job of explaining the issue and why this has to change. Because if you don't get to the why of it and really explain the why to people, they may just think, oh, you're just being racial and you're being like native. What's the word? Nativist.
Yeah.
And how dare you? How dare you not make this like, I can see them saying that.
Wow.
Which is utterly ridiculous. But so is the fact that they're fighting to keep illegal, violent offenders in our country and on Medicaid. I'm sorry, but they're like, hey, let them all come to our country. We'll support them. We'll give them phones. How dare you think that they have to be deported? How is this going to be any different in their eyes?
Oh my
Come
gosh.
on, Mark.
Counselor, you are making a vicious case.
I'm making the case that 8% of the country they're going to stand by that. And they're building their Democratic Party behind that. What do you think the New York mayor is going to do? You think that guy that's up for New York mayor, what's his name again?
Mamdani?
Yeah. Mamdani, he's going to tell the Chinese, sorry, you can't own any land. No, he's not going to tell them that. He's going to be like, come on in, take the land. It's fine. Like, I'm not even kidding you. This is this party that has lost their minds. And I do not believe in all of my heart of hearts that it is the bulk of the Democratic Party.
Right.
I believe these are the extreme side that really believe in this like really warped sense of allowing
but
whatever
you think they're
going to
set the tone on this?
I think you're going to hear from the loudest people in the crowds. That's what you do. Are you kidding me? Do you think that our state reps are going to be against any of this?
I don't
Not
know.
our state reps, sorry, not our state reps, but those that are our federal reps. You think they're going to say anything about this? You think they're going to stand up for what Trump wants on this? Are you kidding me? If you think that's getting ready to happen,
I don't know.
I have some land to sell you in a.
You're killing me on this. I don't know. You're ripping me to shreds.
I'm not ripping you to shreds. No.
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 This is going
to be the argument they're going to make.
No, you may well be right. I just think that it's an untenable and ridiculous argument. Do I think they could go make it? Of course, they've made some horrendous arguments.
They're gonna put it under the banner of this land is my land. This land is your land.
No way.
Yes, way.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
okay,
way.
Ava, go ahead. You had something, Ava?
I was gonna say I think they're gonna spin it like Trump's trying to ban Chinese people from owning land in the United States.
Yes.
And then they're going to be like, oh, here's what he did with ICE. First, he deported all the Latinos. Now he's keeping the Chinese from owning houses.
Yeah.
Next, it's going to be black people not being allowed to go out in public. They're going to turn it into like, they're going to spin it like, they're going to think he's doing it to be like specifically with the desire to be racist towards Chinese people.
Right.
They're like, he just doesn't want Chinese people to be able to live in America anymore.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. Next, they're going to deport Chinese Americans.
Wow.
That's what they're going to turn.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
honestly, you have conversations with people that buy into a lot of this stuff, which we do have conversations with a lot of people that don't agree with you and me on policy issues a lot.
Right.
Because they listen to this other crazy side to some degree and buy into it, right? And then you're like, has any of that actually happened that you're so fearful of it? You know, we get in those discussions about, oh, well, now my Medicaid's going to get cut. And we're just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So which is to the point where I'm like, okay, well, when your Medicaid gets cut, show me your check and
we'll make up the difference.
We'll make up the difference for you. How about that?
I can seriously see the headline is going to be like the fight for Asian American and Pacific Islanders to own their own land under Trump's dictatorship. It really is going to look like that.
Look, this is you guys are fantastic.
No,
you were making a great point. No. I mean, what's
fantastic.
fantastic is the fact that you're looking at this and you're making a salient case for what may well happen. I can't believe it would happen, but you're right. I'm probably being Pollyanna. I probably am.
You're just thinking that like, hey, national security actually matters and we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we don't just open ourselves up to terrorists or to a country who vastly wants to take over us and take over the American. I mean, that's what they want to do. There's been no secret
Well, they want to
that.
replace us. Yeah,
They want
to
to
like
replace
that's
us.
not something Ilhan Omar would ever say. Like that's not something she's ever going to agree with.
Well,
She's
I don't care about her. I mean, what I care about is do you have this? Do you have people in the, kind of in this kind of center left of the Democratic Party say this is crazy. We cannot back this. This is nuts.
I'm sorry. How many of those people voted for the big beautiful bill? I'm just curious. How many of those,
that's
like,
different. Hold on.
No,
That's
it's
different.
Not. No, it's
yes,
not.
It is
because
different.
they all gave the same.
Stop! It's different.
Please, Mark. They gave the same speaking points.
No. You now see that's the problem. Is you went too far.
I did
because
go too
you
far.
talked about basically.
Oh, please.
No. You're talking about a budget bill which had all the Republican touchstone things in it they wanted. Of course, the Democrats didn't vote for it. That's not the same thing.
It also had tax cuts for everybody.
Democrats are always like, give me more tax cuts. What?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did Harris not come out and say I will do no tax on tips as well? Did she not jump on that bandwagon
okay,
too?
but that's different. Hold on.
This big beautiful bill, it had no tax on tips.
I understand what it had,
and Democrats for the majority.
Well, of
voted
course,
against
but
it.
that's different. The problem now is that you have these massive budget bills, which basically have so many different things in them that they give everybody a reason to vote for it and everybody a reason to vote against it. And so the fact that no Democrats supported Trump's budget bill does not surprise me. No, Republicans weren't jumping on board with Obama's budget bill or Biden's budget bill. So that happens all the time. But this is different. This is different because you do have a true threat to national security. You do have a threat to the food supply. You do have multiple occasions where Chinese nationals have brought in either material or something that could be at least a factor in creating problems for our food production. Like they've been arrested for doing it. So therefore, I think it's a really tough case to make that you come out and say, let the Chinese keep owning, food supply and farmland and land near our military installation. So it's a really hard case to make.
No, and I'm telling you, and we'll move on after this, but still, Mark, these are the same people that we're talking about right now that are not in favor. In the big, beautiful bill, it had budget to make sure that we kept deporting people that are here illegally that are violent offenders, and they were against that as well.
But it's all the same bill. You can't.
Okay,
if you find one piece of a bill you like,
can you let
don't
me say
support
what
it.
I want to say, sir?
You've already said it, sir.
No, I have not said it yet. I'm saying these folks. There is no more. I'm sorry. you have a terrorist cell that comes into here across the border, okay? You have people that are violent offenders that have come and are in our country, have flooded our country in the last 3 years. And you have a party or part of a party that is like, they should be allowed to stay here. We shouldn't deport them. That's not who we are. We're Americans. We're the land of immigration, yada, yada, yada. How is that any different when it comes to the Chinese owning land here? Give me a break. They're going to have the same argument that they have. They're against deporting illegal immigrants that are violent offenders.
I understand. Well, some are.
I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them.
I know. You've made that clear. I'm just saying that in this particular case, Chinese owning land and owning property in this country. Again, these are Chinese nationals. These are not citizens of the United States.
I understand.
But Ava makes a good point. You make a good point. We'll see what happens. I
just hope that they do a good job of explaining why this is dangerous, what the risks are for the American people. I hope that the Trump administration and whoever he puts in charge of this, so if it's Rollins or whoever, they need to make sure that messaging is crystal clear.
But it doesn't matter how crystal clear it is.
No, it does actually. So I will say this. That's why I disagree with you guys on this little portion of it. We always make the point, and we're going to talk about it in the subsequent stories here in a second. We always make the point that the side that has the cleanest argument usually ends up with public support on their side, right? It's a clean argument. So the argument right now over the big, beautiful bill with Medicaid is that the clean argument is you're cutting Medicaid, therefore you're going to kick people off Medicaid, it's going to hurt them. That overall message has penetrated. It has. We're going to show you numbers that show that it's penetrated because the Republican point has been more convoluted. On this one, I think the cleaner point is that the Chinese government is buying up land in the United States of America. It puts us all at risk. They have to be out with that. We can't let them do it. They don't let us do it. We're not going to let them do it. Done. That's a cleaner argument than, well, you have some people that live here that are Chinese and they have dual citizenship and they should be able to do. Nope, that's an argument that is too difficult to make. I think it'll be a cleaner argument on the side of kicking the Chinese government out of buying land here. And so therefore, I think it's going to end up being an issue that's not going to stick around very long. I think they're going to get a bill passed with bipartisan support.
Oh, I can't wait to put money down on this because if it was so crystal clear, how come everybody freaked out about tariffs so bad? And we're like, Trump's basically saying, let's make this, saying the same exact argument you just said. We have to pay a tariff when we sell our products in these other countries. Why should they not have to pay a tariff to sell their products in ours?
I'll tell you why that doesn't work.
And he said it should be even, Steven, or we should even the playing field a little bit. And people freaked out.
Yeah, do you know why?
Because the stock market?
No, because it costs more money. If you go, we import much more from China than they do from us. So therefore, when we start importing everything from China and we put a 50% tariff on it, the cost to Americans skyrockets. So that's a terrible example. But
I'm just telling you, people are freaking out about tariffs, right? And you think
because it affects their pocketbook. When Trump says we're going to crank up tariffs on everybody, they're like, whoa, what's going to happen to my Walmart prices? They're going to go up.
Okay, so let's figure out the bet. I'm still waiting for my chair, by the way, with my.
Okay, you get a brand new chair.
I need a brand new chair without duct tape. Okay,
and what do I get?
I don't know. What do you want?
Gosh.
Like you want a case of A&W sugar-free root beer?
No, I go buy that myself. I don't need you getting me my A&W. It's down there. It's full. We're set.
Okay, you figure out what it's going to be.
If Dad wins, we get another dog.
Okay, done.
Oh my gosh.
Done. All right. How long till we have the bill? What are we saying?
You're saying end of Trump's administration, basically.
Oh, no.
Right?
Before that, right? So we'll say before
Christmas, won't it?
I don't know. So let's try maybe, I doubt it'll be that quick.
Year's?
But yeah, maybe, but we'll see. Let's try by the midterms.
So I get a chair, and if I lose, we're getting another dog?
Yes. All right, so let's move on.
And who takes care of the dog? It's me.
Oh,
Ella?
No, it isn't.
It's not Ella.
Oh, stop it.
It is Ella. It's me and Ella.
All right. So let's get back to immigration for a minute because I do want to touch on this because the Trump administration, it's interesting. Again, the cleaner argument on immigration is people that are here illegally, and especially those who have committed crimes, need to be deported. Open borders hurt this country. It's worked. That's a cleaner argument than, trying to, twist yourself in knots and saying all the other stuff that Trump's opponents were trying to say. So what we see now is most of the country supports removing people here that are illegal, that came here illegally, okay? And that does include those who have not committed crime. Listen to Harry Enton on this.
Deport all immigrants who are here illegally, 55% of the New York Times, Marquette 64%, CBS News 57%, ABC News with a slightly different question 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
Okay. Okay, so that's where they are right now. And then you start to look at some numbers come out that say, all right, is what's happening here in the country, is it translating into more jobs for people that are Americans, that were born here? Okay? Is it actually working? Fox had numbers out today.
President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration seems to be showing up in the jobs data. It's a point that the White House is making. Here's what they said about the latest jobs report. It shows that American-born workers have accounted for all of the job gains since President Trump took office, and wages continue to rise. So here are the numbers that they're talking about. Foreign-born employment has fallen by 543,000 since January, when President Trump took office. Native-born or U.S.-born jobs have increased by more than 2 million since the month Trump started his second term.
Okay, so for Trump, those numbers work, okay? However, I think this is interesting because we're going to start running into an interesting thing here, and that's going to be that you have obviously continuing to try to deport people that have committed crimes either here or in their home country. That is something that the vast majority of Americans agree on, even more than what Harry Anton said. That number is 80%, roughly. Like, get them out, right? Mm-hmm. That's what makes some of the approach on the left crazy, like going out and, defending Abrego Garcia, like he's, the second coming of the Pope, right? It's crazy, right? Doesn't make any sense. But as you start to look at this, there's going to be a balancing act within MAGA that's going to be a problem. And that is going to be this kind of hardened purist view of get everybody out of the country that is here illegally versus the reality on the ground, which is that, and I'm not talking about, certain jobs that Americans won't do or whatever. I'm talking about just normal everyday jobs that we don't have enough people to do. Just for you go to how many stores and you have, help wanted signs. You go and try to get something built or whatever it is across the country.
Well, take away Medicaid, people might be getting back to work. I'm just saying, as we're watching some of that happening right now too.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that makes some difference, but probably not enough, right? And so there is a balance. And I think you're starting to see the president's going to realize, like, how do I do this? How do I keep people that are here doing jobs that we really need to do and are working hard? How do we find a way to get them to continue to work, but yet not incentivize coming to this country illegally? And his own base is really upset about it and is going to be upset about it.
Right. I think this is going to be a really tricky one for Trump, but he is actually talking about it because in this cabinet meeting, it was brought up to him like, hey, what are we doing here, especially in the agricultural market, where we have a large dependency on some of the folks that are working these farms that are here illegally, quote, illegally, right? How do we, do we do work visas? What are we going to do? Yep. So Trump was directly asked about that, and here's what he had to say in this cabinet meeting.
If they go out in a nice way and go back to their country, we're going to work with them right from the beginning on trying to get them back in legally. Is that right? So it gives you a real incentive. Otherwise, they never come back. They'll never be allowed once a certain period of time goes by, which is probably going to be 60 days. We're also going to work with farmers that if they have strong recommendations for their farms for certain people, we're going to let them stay in for a while and work with the farmers and then come back and go through a legal process. But we have to take care of our farmers and hotels and various places where they need the people. And we're going to be working with you very carefully on that. So a farmer will come in with a letter concerning certain people saying they're great, they're working hard. We're going to slow it down a little bit for them. And then we're going to ultimately bring them back. They'll go out, they're going to come back as legal workers.
Okay, I don't know what that really means.
I don't either. I mean, it is interesting. Like, they're going to go out, they're going to come back. Is he really going to do that? Or is it going to be more like, hey, they have a letter of reference from their boss?
Yeah, and
so
again,
we'll extend them the work visa?
Well, again, so we have we have the skilled visa program, the H-1B, and then the H-1A, agricultural. So we've got a bunch of different visa programs. Those have to, they have to be working on ramping that up and to make sure that you have a documentation system that makes some sense. And then trying to find a way to do it. But just listen right there. If you just listen to the president, it's like, they don't, this is going to be tricky.
It's going to be sticky. It's a sticky issue because I think when they came out and they said, his whole campaign running on, we're getting the violent offenders out of here. We're getting the murderers and the rapists. I mean, I can hear his words over and over and over. That's who he was coming after. He wasn't really talking about deporting people who have jobs here and who are putting in the effort to help our American societies. Like, he really didn't talk about that initially.
If they don't, so their argument would be, if we don't at all touch any of that, there's still a massive incentive for people to come into this country illegally.
Yeah, it's true. But it's such a broken system. How do you repair that in the 3 years he's got left?
They're going to have to ramp up the visa program. I think the visa program is going to have to be much more robust and really tackle, how that has to be dealt with. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I mean, I don't know.
But every president faces this, by the way, which is your base starts to fracture because the harsh realities of governing run into the realities of the promises you made on the campaign trail. Trump's done a pretty good job of keeping his campaign promises. There's no question.
He didn't just promise Friday pizza for everybody. You can wear jeans on Tuesdays. He offered a lot. He promised a lot more than that. I'm going to say, though, it's not in our story, and we're not going to go into great detail on it, but I do think another roadblock, this whole Epstein file stuff.
Yeah.
That's a disaster for him. And the fact that his response in that cabinet meeting was like, are we still going to be sitting here talking about the Epstein file? Like, are we still talking about this guy?
His voters care about it.
And I'm like, I am, because the guy's a major dirtbag. And if you think that Epstein worked alone and was just interested in having, relations with nearly legal people for the sake of himself, give me a break. I mean, this feels like a cover-up. It feels weird. I don't like it. I think it smells. I don't think it does him any service to not tell the truth on this. Well,
I'm not so sure he's not telling the truth. I think you have a lot of people like Bondi and like Kash Patel who popped off when they were just pundits and didn't know. They had no idea.
I'm sorry. You don't have to be Bondi or Kash Patel to know that Epstein was not doing this for the sake of just himself.
No. I understand. No. That's not what they're saying, though. They were saying at the time
there's no client list. They said that this is just about him and that he just liked relations with nearly legal people, legal girls. Right? Give me a break.
Right. I understand that, but my point on them is before they knew anything, they assumed exactly what you're assuming. Right? They assume that he has
it's a safe assumption.
Okay. And then now that they get in there, they look at it and they say, yeah, if we had something, believe me, we would bring it out. We're not. I'm not saying I think it's bad for them. But again, these are realities of not knowing what you're talking about. So you pop off because you get to pop off and you're a candidate or you're just a pundit. Right? And then you get in there and you're like, oh. Now, could this be some terrible stuff and they're covering it all up? That's possible.
So here's an example of that. So he also said, I'm going to release the JFK files and the MLK files. He was going to do all of it, right? They released the JFK files. From my understanding, there's very limited new information in those files that hadn't already been released, okay? But he did release them all. So then the noise kind of goes away. When you're Trump now and saying, oh, just kidding, there's no list and we're not going to release anything else and it was just really bad videos that nobody should see the light of day of, and I can understand that part of it. I respect that part of it. I don't respect the fact that they come out guns a-blazing saying we're going to have all this information, we're going to put it out for the general public. Now they're not going to do it, and they think that they just release a statement, they say it one or two times, and the American public are going to say, okay, we're not going to ask about it again. And his response is, are we still talking about Epstein?
Well,
I'm like,
I
it's
agree,
Wednesday. You announced this on Monday. Of course we're going to keep talking about it.
Okay, well, that's fine and all, but I would say the bigger issue here is Bondi stepping on it. She's the one who's been incompetent in this. They brought in all these Republican influencers to the White House, and they hand them all these folders. Oh, here's some Epstein stuff.
Well,
there was nothing new. Right? There was nothing new in those things. Those influencers came out, held them up like idiots, and then they were made to look stupid. And now Pam Bondi goes on Fox and she says, oh, no, I have it on my desk. Now she's like, nope, nothing to see here. Her incompetence made this worse, the way she handled it. I don't think she's incompetent, but she handled this in an incompetent way. And so that's why you have all these problems, is because she got out over her skis. She did. She handled it poorly.
Okay, so you're telling me that there's nothing here to see. You believe there's nothing here to see.
I don't know if there is or not. I don't know. How would I I know.
I don't think that we know. And I think that's
but
the problem.
you're hearing, they're telling you no, and you're not believing it.
Because I think, I'm sorry, do you
think Dan Bongino, who spent 5 years talking about this, suddenly now just is like going to clam up and going to just take the deep state line?
Well, I think
I don't know. Do you believe in him? I don't know.
There could be something more to it that we're not allowed to know
All right,
about.
all right, conspiracy.
I'm not a conspiracy theory. I'm just Occam's razor.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying.
I never said that I thought that Epstein didn't commit suicide. Okay, I've never joined that bandwagon. I'm sure the guy did off himself. Again, does the guy commit suicide if all they have on him is that he's a kinky guy that is really inappropriate and a dirtbag? I don't think he goes and commits suicide because of that.
Well, I don't know. I can't drop into that. Who knows what?
I don't know. I'm just saying. I think there's more to it, and I think we're
I
probably
know.
never going to know.
I get what you're saying. I
think it's ridiculous of Trump to think that we're not going to keep asking for it, and for his response to be, "Are we still talking about this dirtbag guy?"
Yeah.
It turns out we've talked about this guy for 5 years. Yeah. We thought we were getting some answers. You basically are saying there's nothing here to see, and we're supposed to be like, okay.
I like your approach today. I think you're throwing 95 mile an hour fastballs. I like it. I think this particular one is, I don't know, whatever. I don't care about Epstein. But I get your point.
I care about cover-ups. That's what I care about.
Yeah. So. But not everything is a cover-up. Sometimes you just get in there, look at the information. You're like, oh, okay. Well, no, that's fine. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree. I don't think you're even wrong.
Are we going to talk about UFOs next? Because you're going to tell me there's none of those either? Okay.
There's not. All right. Quick. All right. So we're going to switch to this Medicaid stuff real quickly. I just want to get to a couple quick things because we're running over on time. But total Medicaid.
You keep talking over me.
Okay. You've been on fire today. All right. So by the way, I want to just give you a couple of quick graphs. Okay. Here is the Medicaid spending from 1975 to 2023. This is all tied into, are we going to cut Medicaid? Is Medicaid spending going to go down? Okay. Only in Washington, D.C. is what I'm about to show you a cut in spending. Okay. So you can see from 75 to 2023, we have increased Medicaid spending immeasurably. It keeps going up. It keeps skyrocketing. Okay. So now that we passed the big, beautiful bill, what's the difference in Medicaid spending? When are we cutting it? So, because it's going to be cut, right? That's what I heard.
Oh, that's what everybody, that's what the message is that's out there is,
okay,
be careful. Kids aren't going to get to eat anymore.
Okay. So here's a little graph made up that, okay, had you not had the big, beautiful bill, you have the line in yellow. Okay. Which is Medicaid spending topping over the next 10 years, $750 billion. Okay. Now, with the big, beautiful bill, does it still go up? Yes. Does Medicaid spending increase every year? Yes. Is there an actual cut in Medicaid spending? No, there is not. And if you ask anyone to actually tell you if there's a cut in spending, the answer is no. And by the way, cut in the rate of increase, where does that come in? That comes in trying to add a work requirement that if you are able-bodied and can do it, you should work. That's what it says.
Be trying to get a job. Be proving that you're trying to get a job.
Yes. Or, which is Bill Clinton's idea, by the way. And not only that, but also if you are not entitled to these benefits, you don't get to get them. All right. So in other words, people that are here illegally, again, another incentive, right, to come to the country illegally is you can get free healthcare, basically. And this says, no, you can't do that. So we're going to try to get some savings there. So anyway, just the overall point in this is there's not going to be a cut in Medicaid spending. There's not going to be. It's not going to happen. And so that's ridiculous. But what it does show you is that any sort of trying to either make the system more efficient or bring some savings into the system is always met with a cry of you're cutting everything. So look at the polling numbers right now, and I'll tell you how you know the Republicans didn't do a great job with this. So first of all, here it is, the YouGov poll over July 4th weekend. Percent who think Trump administration's budget will increase or decrease Medicaid. Okay, Medicaid funding. Okay. U.S. adult citizens, 67-6.
Think it will be decreasing.
It's going to be decreasing. Yeah. Democrats, every one of them is like, yeah, it's decreasing. Independents, 66 to 5%. They say it's going to be decreasing.
Even Republicans think
think it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know you have not done a great job with the numbers and explaining.
Well, I would say if I was polled by that, I would assume that when they say decrease in spending, it's those cuts against the fraud and abuse. That's how I would have answered that too. To be fair, I would say I believe that the budget's going to decrease for Medicaid funding to eliminate those who are getting it that shouldn't be getting it. That's the way I would understand that polling personally if I was asked that question.
Right. Okay. So, and let's go to the next one then. And the next one is, and again, those numbers are rough. So the next one is this, which is the overall bill. Okay. It says, how many of you believe that the Trump budget will help or hurt them? Okay. Next one, help or hurt them. There it is. Adult citizens believe by about 18 points it's going to hurt them. Okay. Democrats, 74% to 3. Independents, 43% to 20. And then Republicans say it'll help them, 49 to 10. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this one I would say is less damaging for Trump because basically they're going to have time
to show
that it's going to work just fine for you.
Right.
So again, this stuff not a huge deal.
Like let the panic. Let's just let the slow roll on the panic,
and then figure out. Oh, wait a minute, this didn't hurt anybody. It actually helped the economy. Right. So at least that's what the president's going to rely on for the administration. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right, you guys have you and Ava have done a little bit of a little fun ending to today's show because Ava likes to imitate Trump. She's an impersonator.
And I also love Shane Gillis. I love that guy.
Okay, so I was listening to the cabinet meeting that Trump was having, and I started listening to it, and he starts talking about this clock that he saw in the State Department, and he loves this clock. So it brought me, and as I listened to him, I'm like, it sounds to me like Trump is listening to Shane Gillis do Trump. So Trump is imitating Gillis, who's imitating Trump. Okay, so the first one, I want to start with Shane Gillis, right?
I think we should start with the Trump one.
You want to start with the Trump one?
I think so. Or do you think we should start with Shane Gillis?
I don't know. You want to start with all right, let's do the Trump. Let's do the Trump clock. So Trump's talking about Marco. Yeah. And so he's so let's just listen to what Trump says about this clock.
Marco pointed it out. I was going to leave the clock. So as president, you have the power. If I go into the State Department or Department of Commerce or Treasury, if I see anything that I like, I'm allowed to take it. Do you believe this? So I'm in Marco's. I see this gorgeous clock, grandfather clock, and there it is. I said, Marco. I had to read him the rule and regulation. I said, Marco, I love this clock. Look at it. It's beautiful. He said, what clock? I said, the clock that's in the other room is incredible, and nobody gets to see it there. Marco, I tried to talk him into it first, and it sort of worked, and then I had to use a little more. I said, I'd love to take that clock out and put it in the cabinet room. He said, no, are you serious? I said, Marco, I have the right to do it, Marco. And he said, all right, what the hell? So that's his contribution to the cabinet room. But it's, by the way, it's an incredible.
Okay. So now you hear that he's Marco, and it's just
beautiful clock.
It's fantastic. So then it made me think just of Shane Gillis. So let's listen. If you haven't heard the comedian Shane Gillis do Trump,
he's the best at it, I think.
It's really good. And it isn't necessarily trying to sound exactly like Trump, but the affect is excellent. So let's listen to that.
The whole world, Abu, we could hear him crying. I said, Abu, don't cry. Abu. Let me tell you something. Abu cried. He cried quite a bit. I wouldn't have cried. Cry baby Baghdadi. That's what we were all calling it.
So that's exactly what you got, Mark. I mean, it was just hilarious.
Yeah,
so anyway,
definitely.
Trump, you can say a lot of things about him. He is pretty funny.
Yeah, he definitely has some wit about him. I just think it's funny that he had to explain to everybody that he has the right to take
whatever he wants.
I'm like, who says that? Like, right. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna tell my friends, just so you know, I have the right. I'm gonna come in your house. I'm gonna take what you want. Like, okay, whatever. But and it is a cool clock, but it's just a grandfather clock. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, maybe we'll get a chance ourselves to see that clock in person.
It is true. We are headed to the White House in the first week of August.
That's right.
So, yeah, no, we'll see what we can do. We may have to ask if we can check it out.
West Wing.
Yeah, we'll see if it keeps good time.
Let's see if we can get into that cabinet meeting room to check out the clock, and then we'll report back to you. Like, does the clock work or not? Is it from the Revolutionary War?
Is it really that beautiful of a clock?
It's a beautiful clock. I can't do Trump.
Maybe I'll tell him. I'll be like, Donald, this clock is not all it's clocked up.
Yeah, don't call him Donald, by the way.
Please don't ever call him Donald.
Let's just not do that.
All right. Well, thanks again, you guys, for joining us. We appreciate all of your support. Keep writing in. We love it. Tell your friends about our show. Help us spread the word. We're doing our best here to try to tell people what we think is, interesting to them. So help us continue that message. Mark's sitting here going like this to me and telling me to wrap it up. So thanks again for joining us, you guys. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.